Hey, friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Shawn Camp. He's going to share some stories about his friendship with Cowboy Jack Clement. This was recorded at the Cowboy Arms Hotel and Recording Spa.
I just wanted to, by meeting you here, this place is so special to me, and it burned one time, and I remember when the fire happened. I was here when it was still smoking, and came up here into the studio, and at the top of the stairwell, you could see blue sky, through the roof. It was like this was all gone. So it's all been redone, but it's really the basic footprint that it was before, and it's a great studio now, and it may even be better than it was. It certainly feels great now, and he's still here in a lot of ways. But one of the reasons I wanted to be in this room was just to remember some memories of things we've done in this room, and I remember being right here when Porter and Dolly got together for the first time in 35 years since the breakup. We had a band rehearsal right here for the medallion ceremony for Porter Wagner, and it's part of a movie called George Jones. Shakespeare was a big George Jones fan, the Cowboy Jack movie. And there's a clip, a little scene of that rehearsal here, but the mics weren't working, and Cowboy was going nuts and mad at the world, really mad because his stuff was not working like it should, in that moment, because they were singing and you couldn't hear on tape. They were trying to record it, but the audio wasn't going to tape. But it was Porter and Dolly singing together for the first time in 35 years. Porter and Dolly were really sweet with each other, and Porter had a Rolex watch on that Dolly had given him, and he was really showing her he still had it, and they were evidently had not really visited much in the last 35 years, and they really seemed to connect, and it was great to see them together because you could feel Dolly's love for him still right there, in a way. It was like, she still had a spot for him in her heart. It's on video, but anyway, that happened right here, and I played on Eddie Arnold's last album here, and met Eddie Arnold right here, and for some reason I pulled out this little got this 1939 Odd 18 Martin guitar, that just a great little guitar, and I just thought, man, it'd probably sound good on this Eddie Arnold album. And he walked through the doors here, and he goes, "Where did you find that?" And it's like, I started my career with a guitar exactly like that. And so we hit it off, me and Eddie Arnold. And Billy Burnett was here. He was part of the rhythm section with me and playing some acoustic. And we had a great time recording that last album with him. It was on RCA. And from then on, I would see him at the Sylvan Park restaurant down on 8th Avenue or somewhere at lunch. And he'd see me coming through the door, and he would go, "Hey," across the restaurant, Eddie Arnold, So I'd have to go over and say hello, and not that I had to, I wanted to. I loved the guy, but he could never remember Billy Burnett's name. and he was with me every time I was with Eddie Arnold, just about. Billy Burnett was there, and I'd have to introduce Billy to him, But it was great times, man. My buddy Mike Bubb, great bass player, and he's played with me off and on for years, and I met him out in Oklahoma at a bluegrass festival. And we hit it off, and he was in a band called the Weary Hearts, and they had a 2-week tour, and I was their fiddle player, just a guest fiddler. And at the end of their tour, the Spigma Bluegrass band competition was coming up, SPBGMA or whatever it is, and Society for the Preservation of Bluegrass Music in America, band competition. So they had that lined up, and I played fiddle with them on that, and we won the band competition. But at the end of that, they had this recording session booked here in this room, with Tim O'Brien producing the record, and the Weary Hearts were going to make an album with them. Well, they wanted me on the record on a couple of songs, but they already had Stuart Duncan booked for the album to make the record, but they let me play on a little bit of their record, you know. And so when my little part was done, I went downstairs here and smelled some funny smells coming out of the back room, the bedroom over here, and guitars playing, and I heard the guys playing in there. I kind of cracked the door and said, "What is that funny smell coming from in here?" And this really gruff voice said, "Either come in here and help us with that, or get the fuck out," he said. And I walked in, and we sat down and started picking, had a little jam session. And it turned out to be Fergie, Dave Ferguson, and cousin Bob Clement sitting down there on Cowboy's bed in his bedroom. And we're at Cowboy Jack's Cowboy Arms Hotel and Recording Spa. So anyway, I sat down there and started picking with him, and we hit it off and became really good buddies. And I hung around for about 2 solid years, you know, before I left. So, and somewhere within that day or two, I met Cowboy Jack, and his door was always open to people, just kind of like it seems to be still today here. And now cousin Bob Clement owns the place and runs it, and I've got a lot of memories in this place for sure, you know. I eventually played with Cowboy Jack and Billy Burnett. We had a little trio there for a while that it was Cowboy's ragtime band, but we had Kenny Malone and Dave Rowe playing bass with us, and it was a, you know, really great time just to come over here every day and sit down with Cowboy at 9 in the morning or whatever he wanted us here, and sit around his desk and start rehearsing, you know. And he was an old Marine. He had lists. He was a list making man. And so he always had the ability to pull people together, and usually a lot of weirdos, but a lot of amazing artists and you know, musical wild men, you know. So it was fun to be here with them all. I would just kind of breeze in. The door was always open, and wave at Mary Todd, the receptionist or whatever, and just kind of breeze into Cowboy's office. His office door was always open, and he'd go, "Shawn Lee, come in, have a seat," you know. And it was like we just sat down and start the day off. And there was a lot of times I didn't get in here till a session would be going on upstairs here, and Cowboy had a mic and a speaker system down in his office. He could monitor what was going on up here all the time, and he had a really old school, like a CB mic or whatever. I mean, he could punch a button and go. He would just, like, there was a guy up here named Brooks that was his engineer for a long time, and he'd hit in the middle of a session, he would go, "Brooks!" He would yell out at Brooks on the mic, and it would like come through the playback speakers up here, you know. So it would stop you know, "Get this done, do this," and he would get a little. He was producing from down there, you know, but, you know, just tuning in. But he was a character. If he really liked what was going on, if in the playback, or if you brought a mix down for him to hear and he liked it, he'd jump up and start gliding across the floor, dancing, you know, with a drink on his head. And he was a dance instructor for the Arthur Murray School of Dance, and he still had his business card with a phone number from Memphis on it, you know. He would hand out to special folks, you know. And even though the number was long gone, but it was still his dance instructor card, you know. And if you brought a pretty girl in, oh man, he would latch onto her and just dance around the house with her, you know. He was a great guy.
That's beautiful. Do you have one of those cards?
I do, you know. Yeah, I wouldn't take nothing for it. Well, you know, Townes Van Zandt would be here, but I never really met him that I recall in this building. I knew he was here and he would come through, but I wasn't aware of really who he was at that point. You know, I was just in my own little world, you know, and everybody in here was pretty wild and different, and you never knew who was coming or going, really, you know. Walter Forbes would be here a lot of times from Chattanooga. He was a folk banjo player, a good friend of mine. And C.J. Flanagan was here taking pictures, little skinny lady, you know, with a black photography vest and a Greek fisherman's cap. And she was always bouncing in, getting pictures with people. And you always, you know, you wonder if she had film in the camera. It was just like wide open, you know. And Dave Ferguson was imitating Johnny Cash, and Chance Martin was here, who was also AKA Alamo Jones on the Outlaw Music Channel, and he was Cowboy's DJ sidekick on the radio show. And Jack Stackatrack was here, an engineer, a lot of times, but all of the people that I've ended up working with and been like gravitated towards when I got to Nashville were of the Cowboy Jack School of Music. You know, people that worked with Don Williams, like Alan Reynolds, and you know, Garth Fundus was an engineer for Cowboy for years, and Rex Allen's son, blanking on his name, he was an engineer here, but long before I got here. But this was just a circus, man. You know, hanging out here.
Was Jim Rooney still around here?
Yeah, Jim Rooney was here, and I signed up with a publishing company called Jack's Tracks, which was the, I guess that was the first studio that he built. And it was the second, I think. First was Sound Emporium that Jack Clement built, which is just down the street here at Belmont, and then Jack's Tracks is 1308, I think it is, 16th Avenue, and now Garth Brooks owns the place. That's where Garth cut all of his records. But they had a publishing company called Forerunner Music, and that's where I signed up over there. My buddy Herb McCullough was a staff writer there, and he kind of brought me into that place, and it was I'd just never known the freedom, you know, that a publishing company allowed their writers to just be creative. You know, it was like every other publishing company I'd been around was pretty hands-on, and you know, they're trying to orchestrate everything. And I walked into that place, and it was just like a burden lifted off of me to work with all those people that were of the Jack Clement School of Music. You know, all of those folks that worked at Forerunner Music were directly related to Cowboy in some way, and they all learned how to be free, you know, from him, and that's what he taught us, I think. Well, I used to come in here and I would set a mini disc recorder on his desk with a stereo mic right in the center of the desk, and just punch record and run 80 minutes of disc almost every day. You know, I don't know how many I've got. And at one point, Cowboy's talking about how he wanted his funeral, you know, and he said, I want to be blown up, you know, like a shot out of a cannon on a hill or something, you know. And it was like, just like, there he goes, kablooey, you know. he was really funny about it. And actually, that's what happened right out here in the backyard. Fergie and Mike Armisted's our buddy that's the fireman here in Nashville, and he's the singer at for the Tennessee Mafia Jug Band. He came out here in the back, and they put his ashes in these rockets, and we blew him up, man. Sent him straight up to the sky, and he came down. He came down over the whole crowd. You know, it was like you'd hear him hitting all around us. So he's still around this place. He's part of it. It was like great big, I don't know what they're called, not bottle rockets, but they were, you know, like, and his, like a capsule of ashes in the top. And just as it got up to the tree line before it exploded, this jet, huge passenger jet, comes flying over. You know, it's like out of the tree. It was like, man, he's that's him. That's Cowboy. You know, he's hopped into this jet plane. He's on his way to Alpha Centauri or something. You know, he had this song called I don't know, Matt is the captain of Alpha Centauri. You know, it's on one of his records, and just a crazy spaceman kind of song, you know, but it kind of all hit us like maybe that's where he's gone to, you know. I used to ride a lot with Dean Miller, his son, and I was on the road with Trisha Yearwood and her band, and trying to leave that band actually. And we were in Calgary, Canada, opening for Garth out there. And this would have been about 90, I guess maybe 90 or something. I don't know. Anyway, I called Dean, and he said, "Well, call Daddy. He's just across town. He's up there, and they got the night off." So I got Roger Miller and Mary Miller and their two little kids into the Garth show that night. And we're sitting backstage watching Garth Brooks, on an Anvil big rollaway case. And I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving after this run. I'm going to do something else." He said, "Well, come join my band. Come out and play in my band." And I said, "You got it, man. I would love it, And so he got sick, never took a band out again, like the next month. That was in August, and in September he got sick and never toured again. So maybe that was 91, I guess. We stopped out there and we played in Albuquerque, and I had taken Dean Miller as my writing buddy. We were on our way to California in Trisha's band, but I brought him along as my sidekick. And we got to Albuquerque, and we were going to go see his dad. And so I rented a car and took Dean and Trisha down there, and we went to hang out that night. Went to dinner with Roger downtown in Santa Fe, and then we went to his house after, sitting around having a little guitar pull, and Roger said, "I'm going to step outside and smoke." I said, "Well, I'll go with you." We walked out there under the stars. It was a beautiful night, and Roger, he's like I could sense a darkness coming over him or something, and I said, "When are you coming back to Nashville to record a new record, man?" He said, "Oh, they don't want me to do that. They don't care nothing about me over there." And I said, "Man, that's not true." I said, "I want to hear it. Come on, let's but he had a real darkness about him too, even though he was probably the funniest guy in the world, But I saw that night, and it just always hit me like even Roger Miller can feel down about Nashville sometimes, So it's pretty wild. One time I was out there, I'd never gone to his house, and I knew where his Fox Hollow was, but I never had just showed up at Tom T. Hall's house. But one morning I had been driving around. I went to see my buddy Harley Allen's grave, which was out that way, and I was just driving in one of those moods, and I just wheeled in there and went up and knocked on the door, and Tom T. came to the door, and he said, "Hang on, I'll take you down to my," I don't know if he called it his man cave or what, but he's got a little office down by the chicken pen. And so we went down there and sat around and played songs for a couple of hours, and he smoked a cigar, and we just visited. It was a great visit, I love Tom T. Hall. Great writer, and I'd listened to him all my life, But, he got to telling me about Roger Miller had called him. I think he said in '69, Jerry Kennedy called, and he said Jerry Kennedy, he worked with him, but Jerry never called him. So out of the blue, he got this message to return Jerry Kennedy's call, and he did. And Jerry put Roger Miller on the phone, and Roger said, "I need some of your songs, Tom T. Write me a song. I need some songs." And Tom T. said, "Well, you don't need me to write a song for you. Why don't you just use your songs?" He said, "You don't understand, Tom T. My clown died." So he had gotten to a place he needed some songs. And if you listen through Roger's box sets, or, you can tell he started recording other people's songs around that time. I guess he went through a dry spell, you know. I don't know why I'm telling you this.
My clown died?
My clown died,
I've
man.
never heard that before.
Roger was something else too, man. Once in a while, every year or so, I'll call him and end up, we'll visit for 30 minutes or something on the phone, and that's about it. But he's kind of become reclusive in a way, you know, since his wife Dixie passed. You know, I think that really has changed a lot of his getting out amongst the public. You know, kind of he's retired. You know, and sold a lot of that stuff off. You know, to just downsize like everybody does at the end of their road. You know, and I saw you there at the auction. Mike Bubb told me about it. All right. Yeah. So I was blessed to be able to buy his pool table, and I've spent many hours listening to Tom T records, shooting pool on his table, you know, and I called him up after the sale just to let him know that I'd bought his fiddle and a guitar of his, and his first instrument that he ever owned that he got when he was 8 is a lap steel that his parents bought him, and I've got that. It's really cool, and the pool table. Anyway, I called him up to tell him where all that was, if he wanted it back. I said, if you want it back, let me know. I've got it, you know. He said, I won't be needing that where I'm going. So he was already ready to sign off as far as all the worldly possessions go, I think, you know. Well, I was told Tom T. Hall used to have parties out at his house, and he had the pool table set up there, but he would go to bed early. And one night he goes to bed at a party and comes back the next morning, and he finds George Jones wrapped up like a burrito on the pool table, passed out, asleep on top of his pool table in a rug, floor rug. So rolled up in a rug. So I think about that once in a while, playing George Jones records too. Well, I wouldn't have met Kristofferson without Tamara Saviano, who was basically his personal assistant or manager and publicist at times. Tamara was asked to put together the Guy Clark tribute album, and she asked me to co-produce the album with her. And Kristofferson came in and sang on that album, and that was probably the first real interaction I'd had. Although Tamara did a Kristofferson tribute album that I sang on before I really met Chris, and I sang "Why Me Lord," and Kristofferson wrote me a letter, which is really cool, you know, from Hawaii. He mails me a letter, and really nice, you know, nice guy. He was playing the Ryman one time. I hung out with him on the bus there one time, and Dean Miller was with me, and Tamara, and we drank a bottle of red wine, and Chris got up to throw the bottle out, and I said, whoa, wait a minute, man, I'm going to be a real germ here. I said, would you mind signing that autograph in that wine bottle? And he said, sure, and he wrote on the wine bottle, you know, and so I've got it. I saved the old empty wine bottle that we had shared. It was kind of cool, you know. Then later on, Tamara was still his manager or whatever, and she wanted me to come put together or play on the album, a new album that they were doing down in Austin. So I thought I was band leader on the record or on the recording, but I ended up being the producer on that. I didn't know it till I got the album in my hand and said I'm the producer, but it's called the Cedar Creek Sessions, and we cut like 24 songs in 2 days there, I think it was, you know, and man, he was a powerhouse, just stood up all day long singing these songs, one right after the other, you know, and did great. It was a lot of fun to record. A lot of old remakes we did, but a few newer songs that he had written too. And it was really a highlight to work with him. He was there to do the job, and he was, you know, plowing through them. You know, he'd get through with one, and the song would be instruments would be ringing to a close, kind of. He would say, "Okay, what do I do now?" You know, he was ready to move on. You know, it was pretty neat.
I became obsessed with "To Beat the Devil" like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, you drove me down Music Row and showed me where the bar. Could you talk
Tally Ho
about?
Tavern.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about what that was with that song and the Tally Ho?
Man, that was before my time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was gone when I got here in January of '87. But had a lot of buddies that used to go in there and drink at the Tally Ho Tavern. Like Herb McCullough used to drink there a lot when Kristofferson was there, and I'm sure John Scott Sherrill was there too. But that was before my time. Curb Records knocked that down, Mike Curb, and put part of his record company there, I think.
Did Kristofferson live across the street from there?
Yeah, he did. The first meeting I ever had with a publisher was in that building that Kris used to live in. It was a Warner Brothers. Warner Chappell owned these two yellow and brown houses that were like joined together. They had put them together, and that's right where Starstruck, Reba's place, sits now. But it was just diagonal across the street from Tally Ho Tavern. It was probably 50, 75 yards at the most, you know.
Did he bartend there?
I don't know that.
I don't know either. I thought I've heard people say that, but I didn't know if it was true.
I know that Cowboy, the very first day that Kristofferson was in town, what was her name, that worked at NSAI, wrote Long Black Veil, Mary Jo Wilkins, is that her name? Yeah, Mary John Wilkins. She brought Kris Kristofferson to meet Cowboy Jack, and Kris still had his uniform on when he got here, and when he met Cowboy, first day in town. So, you know, maybe Kris was actually, you know, of the Cowboy Jack school. Who knows? He was genuine, man. John Prine, if you ever met him, you thought he was a good friend of yours, you know, instantly. You know, he just had I think just even in his lyrics, you know, any line in the song would almost make you feel like you know him, you know. He had something about him, you know. He was trusting in everyone, you know. I went to see, he called me back in November of 19, or I guess the first week of December of 2019, and Billy Strings was playing a concert down here at the Marathon Village or Marathon Warehouse, or what? The old
Works.
Yeah, Music Works. And he said, Fiona's gone out of the country, and my son's gone doing something. He said, you want to go to this concert with me tonight? Billy Strings is playing, and I told him I'd go down there. And I said, sure. I said, you want me to come pick you up? He said, yeah, that'd be great. So I go get him, and we go down there and pull around to the back door, and somebody lets us in, and they've got the balcony set up, you know, for him, nobody else, you know. But you got to go through the crowd. Everybody's standing up. It's like a Grateful Dead concert or something, you know. And so they lead Prine. We open the door, and everybody's like lit from the stage lights, their faces, you know, and we're walking into the lit crowd, and Prine's right in front of me, and everybody's just like parting. Oh, John Prine! They back up, you know, and it's like we were just moving through this crowd of a couple of thousand people, and he was like Jesus walking through the crowd. It was like, man, he's like I don't know, he's their God or something, you know. It was like, man, it's kind of wild, you know, just to feel everybody's love toward him, and they just opened up the sea of, you know, faces to let him pass right through. And he was just like, hey, how you doing? He would speak to some folks, and we got to the balcony, and they had diet ginger ales and vodka, little Smirnoff vodkas, and his favorite drink was a Handsome Johnny, which was diet ginger ale and Smirnoff vodka and a twist of lemon, and so they had all that spread out with a cooler, and they brought hot dogs up there, like platters of hot dogs for me and him to sit up there and eat, just crazy stuff. It was like hanging out with the king, and we were overlooking the crowd. I got a great picture of me and Prine up there. That's that Billy Strings photographer buddy. I'm blanking on his name now, but he took a great picture.
You're at the right show when you walk through a crowd of people and they all recognize John Prine.
Yeah.
You're at the right gig, probably.
Yeah, it was a real honor to be his chauffeur that night, and just to kind of see the crowd's reaction to him on that level, it was kind of mind-blowing. Well, I think I met him at the Holdam family Christmas show, which I was a member of the Holdam family. There was like 17 of us or something. I was little Shawnee Holdam, he was little Johnny Holdam, and that was a Christmas show we did every third Saturday of December, for a while. And it was a great band, just filled up with a bunch of crazies. And Roy Husky Jr. played bass, and Larry Hardiker played drums. We called him Hop Sing. He wore a little Japanese-looking hat or something, and I played fiddle, and Dave Ferguson would play some, and Jim Rooney, John Prine, and Pat McLaughlin, and Mike Henderson played some, and Jamie Hartford would come and play, and I don't know, it was a huge blur. Everybody might have been drinking a little bit of something or something, during those days, but it was a little bit of a wild party kind of atmosphere, So that's probably where I first met Prine, and I remember going to that Thanksgiving the first time to his house and playing poker with him, and probably the first year I met him, and but John Prine was here a lot, coming and going, and that's another one I waited years really after meeting Prine. I knew of a few of his songs, but I didn't want to be too, like blown away by him, because he was a personal friend, so I didn't want to soak up his musical greatness for a while. I don't know why. I just wanted to know him, rather than know all these great songs that I knew he had. I just didn't want to gush about how talented he was. He was something else. But time rocked on. Eventually, I did a little record for a Live at the Station Inn album, and I gave it to Oh Boy Records as a lease deal where I would get it back. But they put me on the road with Prine, opening a few shows with him, and that was fun to see his crowd, and what a great guy, man. We went to Arnold's several times, and if he was there, I'd always end up just sitting with him, or he would sit with us. I remember I took my dad to Arnold's on his 70th birthday, and with my mom, the three of us walk in, and as we're sitting down, Prine comes in, and he sat down with us. It was my dad's birthday. It was just like, I don't know that he had ever met my folks, but they hit it off. And he was just a good old boy.
Did you go fishing with him?
He invited me to go fishing several times, and it seemed like all these big world events that would happen that he would invite me to do, like something would happen that it would fall apart with me and Prine. And he asked me to go play the Letterman show with him in New York City, and that was years ago. And we're ready to go, and the day we were supposed to leave, Letterman had a heart attack. And so Prine got canceled. And he's like, "Oh man, if I ever get booked back, you're going with me, But something always fell apart. Well, then he invited me to go up to the White River in Mountain View, Arkansas, which I'm from Arkansas. He wanted me to come up there and go fishing with him and Jim Rooney and Roger Cook and Keith Sykes. And, you know, there's a slew of guys that he used to hang out with. Charles Cochran, great piano player. Well, we were getting ready to go, and Charles Cochran had a car wreck and got killed. So that week got canceled. And every other time I would be on the road or something when they decided to go. And I went up there finally in 2019. He called me to go. And so we talked on a Sunday night. We were going to leave the next morning at 10 a.m. on Monday to get over there at the same time. And I was taking my dad, and we went over there. When we get there, Prine's nowhere to be seen, you know. And so we find out he's sick and in the hospital, and he don't make it, but all of his friends are there, you know. And that place was his favorite place. The first place he had played to a live audience and or in front of people. He was 14 years old when his family went there on vacation, and so he came back a couple times a year for a week at a time or something, and would go fishing and write songs. And so when he passed back in the first week of May this year, we all met up there, and 9 of us, and scattered his ashes out on the White River, or some of his ashes. It was pretty powerful, for sure. But he pulled us together, all of that crew, you know. It was a lot of Cowboys family, you know, but some of his friends too, you know. John Earl and Brian Holmes was our fishing guide over there. So I've met a lot of friends through Prine, for sure. I just think he had an open, loving heart, and he was just an open book, you know. And he had a quirky personality and had a wild way of saying things that drew folks in, you know. And if you listen to his songs, you knew him. So that's all there is to it, you know.
If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and tell me down below what your favorite John Prine memory is, and I'll see you somewhere down the road. Much love to you.